Now, let's get a bit more perspective, particularly from the team in the forefront of managing this health crisis. I'm being joined live from Abuja by the National Coordinator, Presidential Task Force Team on COVID-19, Dr. Sani Aliyu. Thanks a lot for joining us on what's been quite a long day for you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Now, each time there's a formal confirmation of new cases, it troubles a lot of people. Is it that the capacity for testing has improved, or are you seeing an influx of people presenting with COVID symptoms?
Well, it's really the nature of the epidemic. If you look at the epidemic curve from other countries as well, when cases start rising, they usually rise exponentially. It's not like you have an increase by single digits. Usually one person will infect between 2 to 3 people on average. So within a week, really, you can have a doubling of the figures. At the same time, you're also right. We're definitely testing a lot more. The NCDC has really ramped up testing. They've opened about 2 labs, additional 2 labs so far compared to the 5 labs we had last week. Their capacity has increased. We're looking really at going to up to 1,000 tests, hopefully by the end of this week. So it's a mixture. But at the same time, we're also doing a lot more contact tracing because the more cases you have, the more contacts you need to follow up and chase for symptoms and then to test them. So for instance, I think at the moment there are about 5,000 persons that are being contact traced based on the numbers we have, and that's going to increase significantly over the next few days as more and more cases come up.
And in terms of the length of time it takes to get a result, are you seeing a shortening of the timing? You know, how long does it take now, on average, to get a result out?
So I'll have to leave the exact figures to the NCDC, but certainly we've noticed an improvement in the turnaround time. We've also, the NCDC has also opened test centers, sort of drive-in test centers in Abuja and I believe in Lagos, and possibly there's some work going on in Kano as well. This has significantly improved the turnaround. On average, the test itself takes about 6 to 8 hours to run on the PCR machine, and then you have to validate it. About 30% of the tests fail. And they have to be repeated again for various reasons to do with controls, etc. So sometimes that's why we tend to have delays of up to 24, sometimes even longer. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that the tests are more efficient. The Presidential Task Force has been looking at performance indicators, including the number of tests that are done, the number of people that are still awaiting tests, and how long it's taking.
All right. Yeah. At today's briefing, we heard a bit more about the lockdown and how it's going to be enforced. Just in terms of giving the NCDC and other partner agencies space to work, that was the whole idea. How long do you think it will take to begin to see a change in the curve? I know flattening the curve is what everybody seems to be saying, but how long do you think it will take for us to begin to see a change from the current trend of the spread?
So, of course, I can't predict that because being an epidemic, that's why it's called a pandemic. It's a difficult one, but usually things usually tend to turn within 3-4 a week after closure. The main reason why we actually went for the restrictions, as you rightly said, is to enable us get on top of the contacts that we need to trace, and at the same time reduce ongoing transmission. Because if you have fewer people interacting, fewer people coming out and relating with each other, you're not going to get transmission. The virus itself does not fly. You need contact between 2 persons in order for the virus to transmit. So if people keep away from each other as much as possible, stay at home. Keep your social distances, avoid mass gatherings. The virus itself will just peter out. So that's why we went for the restriction measures. But as you can see from what's happening in other parts of the world, it's definitely a very infectious condition. It's also very different to what we have seen in the past with other respiratory viruses such as influenza. And the mortality, the death rate is also relatively high, particularly in certain groups like the elderly, those with underlying medical conditions. But the vast majority of people will probably have a mild to moderate illness. Up to 80% will have a mild to moderate illness and may not even notice those symptoms. And they're the ones that could go on to transmit to more and more people within the population. So yes, we are measuring as many tests as we can, but the important thing is to try and break the transmission by stopping people from interacting closely with each other.
All right, National Coordinator, Presidential Task Force Team on COVID-19, Dr. Sani Aliyu. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you very much.